It's always a terrible day when I have to talk about Concord. I wish that game would just stay dead, that we didn't constantly have to mention its name, that we could just move on, but we can't. And now a former Concord dev is saying it was gut-wrenching to see our project fail, but urges players not to judge Marathon too soon. I have a few different things to show off, but before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, I don't really think that Bungie needs the vote of confidence from a Sony developer who was behind a $500 million failure. In my opinion, that's a pretty bad look. And if I were a former kind of Concord dev who was speaking up about Marathon, I would probably think to myself, yeah, I'm helping sabotage these people. So it says gameplay of Bungie's extraction shooter Marathon was finally revealed over the weekend, and while there's plenty of excitement for it, a non-negligible number of gamers have jumped into the conversation to make unflattering comparisons to Concord. Yeah, because it's a very similar situation. First of all, you have a $40 buy-in for minimal content. The problem with Concord, or one of the many, right, was that it was a $40 game. You only had a couple of characters, a couple of maps, a couple of game modes. When you're charging money, you need to be going above and beyond, but they didn't. With Marathon, from what we're hearing, again, it's not officially confirmed, it's going to be 6 characters, 3 maps in 1 mode at launch, and I'm sure that as the weeks and months go on, they're going to update it with more content, but that is unacceptable. Plus, you have to consider Battle Pass and additional microtransactions. That's just not cool. Never mind the fact that the visuals look very kind of uninspiring. I like the general theme of it if it wasn't a Marathon, but the problem is that Marathon used to be like a sci-fi game that was supposed to be a competitor to a System Shock, not just a modern day slop fest. It's so disappointing that they traded in Marathon's original identity for this. And then it's an extraction shooter, which is a passing fad already. There's a couple of extraction shooters that people have liked over the years, but I feel like it never picked up the way that like battle royales did. And I just think that they kind of had an initial idea for a battle royale, then they retooled it to an extraction shooter. None of it feels like Marathon, in my opinion. And there's a lot of reasons why it's being compared to Concord. The combat looks mediocre, the environments don't look great, the buy-in price, and now you basically have these Concord devs playing the victim while trying to prop up Marathon when really it just all looks terrible. After reading the comments about Marathon being Concord 2.0 on Reddit, YouTube, and Twitch, I just wanted to share a little insight into what a 40-year-old man is feeling after dedicating a large portion of his life to making video games, the former Firewalk Studios senior visual effects artist Stephen Williams wrote in a Marathon subreddit. Concord failed to inspire players, and the message was heard loud and clear. It was gut-wrenching to see our project fail, but by being the laughingstock of many online, I have learned that failure is what drives me to succeed, and no one feels as bad as the people who put their time on the line, hoping it would entertain the masses of gamers across the globe. Yes, but at the end of the day, you did still get paid for the work that you did. So ultimately, yeah, you don't have that plan to fall back on for the next 3 or 4 years of development, but it's not like you got paid nothing. Concord, you'll recall, wasn't just a failure, it was a spectacular flameout. The Journos refuse to admit it is the biggest failure in the history of the video game industry because they want to protect Sony, which is so pathetic in my opinion. Like, we're talking $500 million plus. Word on the streets that it cost $600 million between buying Firewalk Studio, the initial development costs, the money Sony put into it, and then marketing. And that's just the biggest failure we've ever heard of, but they refuse to say those words plain and simply. It says, though, that seeing the faces of developers on the Bungie stream gave me hope and excitement for what is to come for Marathon. I commend them for taking a chance, trying something foreign to them that isn't proven nor guaranteed to succeed. That takes a lot of courage. And then he said, I am stoked to see the fully polished product. Bungie will cook. They always do. I don't necessarily think that Bungie is going to cook here. I think that they are going to face a lot of problems. Maybe this will come out and it will be amazing. When it does launch, I'll give it a shot like I do most games. but there are already major pieces of information that make me not want to support it. If I was an average customer and I wasn't a content creator who tries to play and review the games I talk about, this right here would push me away from the game because the Bungie developers have already called us toxic. They said Marathon won't have proximity chat because it'd be way too toxic. I don't think anyone has a good solution to that just yet, which is insane. No chat in an extraction shooter, that's part of the fun. But to top that off, they're saying that, gamers are just too toxic to have features like this, which is just crazy to me. They want to make sure that they are creating a safe space and a safe environment. But look at how popular Call of Duty is. In Call of Duty, if you think back to those Xbox 360 lobbies, were kind of the highlights of gaming for a lot of people, myself included. I still think back to those days when I was like 13 or 14, playing those games on Xbox Live at 2 a.m., having the time of my life. It was so fun, and sure, you could deem that as toxic, but ultimately, we're talking about memorable experiences, and there were more times than not that it was wholesome fun versus like rampant toxicity. It's ridiculous that these developers always want to push a narrative. And this former Firewall Concord dev is getting absolutely roasted on social media, and rightfully so. If I was somebody working at Bungie, I would not be happy. This is not the vote of confidence that Bungie needs right now. I will never understand this childish, everyone has tried their super duper hardest, so please don't be mean to us mentality of the Western AAA gaming developer. I understand it because they always want to play a victim and they don't want to be criticized for the poor work that they did. Holy shit, this is practically confirmation that it's Concord 2.0. Marathon is so cooked, this did way more damage to the game than help. Never mentioned DEI garbage and neglect of the feedback gamers gave them. Sound like he'll continue to fail. Yeah, I mean, this developer completely ignored major criticisms of Concord, but you can't expect these people to be honest or even try to understand what gamers didn't like about their experience. As long as original Halo and Destiny devs are in charge of Marathon, it will be fine regardless of whoever else they hire to do work, which I do not agree with. You can have one or two industry vets on a project, but the other voices will still overshadow them. Look at what happened with Rocksteady. I've talked about it at length. The original co-founders of Rocksteady were there. Some of the people who worked on the Arkhamverse, the good ones, the good games, were part of Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, but then they all ended up leaving because they were not happy with the direction KTJL was going in, and look at the pile of trash we got. Like, one of the co-founders of Rocksteady was there until 2022, and then, of course, it released in 2024, so you'd think that their input would have mattered, but it was ultimately just overshadowed because of the activists at the company, and that's so sad to see and to hear happening. If something costs money, you can't just expect people to give it a chance, which also is a major problem. If this Marathon kind of reboot was free, I think that perhaps people would be giving it more of a chance because you're not investing anything except for time. And after investing an hour or two into matches, I mean, you're going to have already played the 3 maps that there are, and there's only one mode. And then maybe you take, like, I don't know, a half hour for each character, or even one match for each character, and you've already gotten the whole experience. But $40 plus additional microtransactions and battle passes is just insane, and you can't expect people to invest in that if they do not like the initial look of it. So I'll be keeping my eye on Marathon. I'm sure talking about it quite a lot as we get closer to the release of it. But now a former Firewalk and Concord dev is damage controlling for Marathon, saying it's not Concord 2.0, and they're basically crying victim. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.